I have been sitting here thinking about our Houston Texans, and honestly, the wait for training camp is starting to feel like an absolute eternity. Something just dropped this morning that might shake up the depth chart sooner than we anticipated. It is fascinating to see the front office making these moves while we are still in the quiet of the offseason, and it really makes you wonder about the long-term vision for this roster. The more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is happening behind the scenes. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me your name and city below. Let's get into it. The Houston Texans have officially parted ways with cornerback Johnny Carter and defensive end Xavier Thomas as the team waived both players from the reserve injured list earlier this week. These roster moves occurred as we remain just 3 weeks away from the start of training camp, with Jonathan M. Alexander first reporting the news on July 1st. Johnny Carter had been with us since before the 2025 season as a gritty undrafted free agent pickup who grinded his way to 36 special team snaps across 2 games last year against the Titans and Bills. Meanwhile, Xavier Thomas joined us on a futures contract in December following a 2-year stint with the Arizona Cardinals, where he was originally a 5th-round draft selection in 2024. While both men struggled to secure a permanent spot on our competitive 53-man roster, their departures signal a clear shift in how our front office is prioritizing depth ahead of the season. Honestly, the emotional reaction across the fan base has been one of reserved acceptance rather than shock, because we all knew the uphill battle they faced to crack a defensive unit as deep as ours. People understand that Coach DeMeco Ryans is ruthlessly evaluating talent, even if it feels tough to see guys who put in the work during the offseason get released while nursing lingering injuries. The bottom line here is that the team is setting a high bar for practice squad eligibility and overall performance, leaving little room for sentimentality when training camp is hovering right around the corner. While there is a slight chance the front office could bring one of them back later for extra competition, the current signs suggest that their time wearing our colors has reached its conclusion as we prepare to gear up for another dominant year. The truth is, these roster moves are about the brutal reality of a team preparing to compete for a championship under DeMeco Ryans. We saw Johnny Carter and Xavier Thomas land on the reserve injured list back in May, but with training camp looming just 3 weeks away, the organization decided they could no longer afford the roster flexibility cost. Carter, a local product who fought for his life on special teams with 36 snaps across 2 games last season, simply could not carve out a permanent defensive role. Meanwhile, Thomas joined on a futures contract hoping to rekindle his career after playing 200 defensive snaps during his 2024 rookie year in Arizona. Unfortunately, his usage plummeted to just 57 combined snaps in 2025, signaling he had fallen out of favor well before hitting our injured list. Historically, this front office has shown they have zero patience for players who cannot stay healthy enough to challenge the starters during the summer grind. Behind closed doors, Nick Caserio and the coaching staff are likely thinking about the immense depth we already possess at defensive end and corner. They view the roster as a premium asset that must be occupied by players ready to contribute immediately rather than those fighting uphill battles from the trainer's table. And let's be real, this is a business where talent density dictates everything. While it is unfortunate to see these guys go, it opens up vital spots for undrafted free agents or hungry veterans who can actually push for a rotation spot behind Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. We have seen this same ruthless efficiency yield results before, and the coaching staff is clearly prioritizing maximum roster efficiency as we gear up for the season. We demand nothing less if we want to celebrate Toro time in February. The truth is, while waiving Johnny Carter and Xavier Thomas won't make national headlines, it serves as a critical signal that DeMeco Ryans is ruthlessly trimming the fat as we approach the final roster crunch. Every single spot on this squad is precious because our championship window is wide open right now, and holding on to players injured since May simply denies us the chance to evaluate healthy bodies who can actually contribute to the depth chart. By parting ways with these two, the team clears valuable roster flexibility, allowing management to bring in fresh talent to push for those final spots. With the season looming, this move directly impacts our defensive depth behind stars like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, ensuring we have guys ready to fight for snaps when we face high-powered offenses like the Indianapolis Colts or the Jacksonville Jaguars. If we want to maintain our dominance over Shane Steichen and Liam Cohen, we cannot afford to waste reps on players who are not physically ready to compete. This decision shows that Ryans and the front office are prioritizing absolute readiness, which is exactly what we need to stay ahead of the pack in the AFC South. As Houston Texans fans, we know the difference between a good team and a great one often comes down to the bottom 10 players on the roster, and these moves prove that our front office is obsessed with finding that hidden value. Our playoff chances rely on every single defender being able to step up at a moment's notice, and by clearing out the uncertainty, we are positioning ourselves to be as lethal as possible once the real work starts. This is a cold business, but it is necessary for building a true contender. Toro time. The biggest upside to waiving a Johnny Carter and Xavier Thomas is the immediate preservation of roster flexibility for DeMeco Ryans as we approach training camp. By cutting ties now, the front office creates breathing room for high-upside prospects who can genuinely push for rotational depth behind stars like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, ensuring that every spot on the 53-man roster is held by someone fully healthy and ready to contribute. On the flip side, the risk here is losing internal depth that already understands our defensive scheme, especially since Thomas brought valuable experience from his time with the Cardinals. Some league analysts are questioning whether this creates a void in our secondary and pass rushing rotations, noting that injuries happen quickly in this league, and keeping familiar faces is often safer than gambling on unproven camp invites. Around the league, scouts are watching to see if our staff prioritizes pure speed over system familiarity, wondering if we might regret losing players who could have provided cheap relief during the inevitable attrition of a long season. Here is where I land on this. While it is tough to see guys go, the bottom line is that the Texans are currently operating with championship aspirations, and if you are not 100% healthy and ready to dominate, you simply cannot occupy a roster spot. I genuinely believe that DeMeco Ryans knows exactly what he needs to build this defense into a terrifying unit, and if that means churning the bottom of the roster to find hungrier or more talented players, then I am fully on board with the move. We need killers on this team to reach the Super Bowl, so let us trust the process and get ready for training camp. Toro time. The bottom line here is that these roster moves signal a clear shift in the Texans' franchise direction as we approach the season. By waiving a Johnny Carter and Xavier Thomas, the front office is showing that they are prioritizing high-end consistency over depth gambles, ensuring that every spot on this roster is occupied by players who can truly push for significant roles under Coach DeMeco Ryans. We are no longer a rebuilding team searching for scraps, but a championship-caliber organization that demands perfection, and these cuts reflect the extreme competition that will define our depth chart moving forward. As Houston Texans fans, you should feel encouraged by this news because it confirms that our leadership is unwilling to settle for mediocrity, even on the fringes of the squad. While it is always tough to see players go, the reality is that the talent level in our locker room has skyrocketed, and we need roster space for hungry athletes who can actually contribute on Sundays. It is a sign of a healthy, elite culture where performance is the only currency that matters for survival. Think about it this way: would you rather keep a long-shot depth piece or open up opportunities for a potential hidden gem who could excel on special teams or provide vital relief for Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter? This aggressive approach keeps our championship window wide open for years to come, and I personally believe this ruthless efficiency is exactly what we need to hoist a trophy. Knowing that our front office is constantly refining our depth, who do you hope to see the Texans target as a camp body to replace these two spots on the roster? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Toro time. I'll see you in the next one.